was over, Sioux Falls had received an above-average 40 inches of snow. But what are these autumn skies telling us this year? Is it going to be a harsh winter or mild, wet or dry? We'll look at the skies and the science to try to find some answers in the Kelo Live Doppler Winter Special. Welcome to the Kelo Live Doppler Storm Center. This is where we spend most of our day calculating the type of weather heading your way, from La Nina to wind, water levels, and more. We cover it all today. Plus, meteorologist Scott Munt will try his best at predicting just how much snow we could see this winter.
First off, one of the big weather players in the winter forecast is the return of La Nina. What is La Nina and how will it impact Keloland? Well, let's explore those questions as we unpack the first clues about snow and cold this winter.
First, by definition, La Nina is defined as a cooler than normal area of Pacific Ocean temperatures near the equator. It gets more complicated when you dive into the strength of La Nina across the various regions along the equator and the impacts on weather here in North America. Last winter, as you will recall, was a La Nina winter. It was pretty friendly to Keloland for mild weather most of the time. December was well above normal. In fact, the Northwest District of South Dakota had its third warmest December on record. The trends continued into January. We finished the month among the top 10 warmest through Keloland. But then February arrived and so did the cold. We endured a severe outbreak of sub-zero weather and finished with the 17th coldest February on record in southeast South Dakota. It didn't take long and the switch back to warm weather appeared in March. We again finished in the top 10 warmest for most of our Keloland counties. So what can we learn from last year? It's very well known that La Nina winters can feature two distinct patterns for Keloland. This pattern was the one we saw in December, January, and March. The strong jet stream flow off the Pacific Ocean can provide segments of very mild winter weather here during the heart of winter. This is typically a much drier pattern than normal. The other face of La Nina isn't so nice. This is what poured into the United States in February when the jet stream buckled and allowed severe cold to pour into this part of the country. This winter will likely feature a moderate La Nina, similar to last year, but we can already see differences emerging. It's been a more active fall storm track, with these pre-winter storm tracks repeating possibly during the winter months. It's not just the temperature changes along the equator that we watch. Right now, a large plume of above normal water temperatures in the Pacific north of Hawaii could play a big role in driving cold Arctic air into the U.S. like it did in 2014.
It all gets rather complicated, but fortunately for us, meteorologist Scott Mott will explain his take on what this all means for the official snow forecast coming up later in the show.
And the key is later in the show. While I won't give you an exact number, I've been doing this job at Keloland for over 20 years. When I started, I would hear people say it just doesn't snow like it used to. But over the past several years, I don't hear that anymore.
Maybe it's because we've gone through several winters with heavier snow. We've dealt with what's known as the Cattleman's Blizzard from early October of 2013, when 4.5 feet of snow covered Lead and nearly 2 feet of snow in Rapid City. The storm came with falling temperatures, riding 50 to 70 mile-per-hour winds. It cost ranchers millions of dollars in lost cattle. Aberdeen recently recorded over 1.5 feet of snow during the last days of November of 2019. And there's the Christmas blizzard of 2009, when 10.5 inches fell in Sioux Falls on Christmas Day, helping the city to just under 30 inches for the month. But that pales in comparison to the snow in April of 2018, when over 30 inches fell in the month of April, almost 7 times our average April snowfall. Here's a look at the average snow broken down per decade since the 1950s. Sioux Falls saw their lowest snow in the 1970s, when a lot of record cold lows were being felt. Cold air has a hard time holding moisture. On the other side, the 1990s brought the heaviest, with an average of just over 46. We've stayed in the middle 40s ever since. While Aberdeen had their lowest in the 1980s. The bad droughts during that decade may be to blame. with Aberdeen's heaviest coming in the last decade with nearly 45 inches. Central South Dakota doesn't usually get as much snow, with the lowest decade average in Pierre being in the 60s with less than 25 inches. Last decade was their highest, with an average just under 40. Rapid City has had some impressive extremes, from a low average of 21.2 inches to almost 3 times that at under 60 inches last decade. Things can be analyzed as to why some decades produced a lot and some produced little. But I do find it interesting that the extreme cold of the 1970s and the drought years of the 1980s have the least amount of snow for 3 of our 4 cities, while the last decade produced the highest average in 3 of the 4 cities.
Now, with some getting their highest snow in the last decade, I really haven't heard it just doesn't snow like it used to.
Well, when you think winter, like Scott, you think snow. But often we also get wintry mixes of sleet or freezing rain. Winter weather often brings mayhem. Whenever precipitation of any kind occurs in the chilly winter, it is impactful. It affects travel, schools, workplaces, and even getting around on foot. It's why alerts are issued, so we can plan our lives around the annoyances that wintry weather sends our way. A winter weather advisory is issued whenever there is an expectation of sleet, ice, blowing snow, or snowfall that is over 3 inches. Occasionally, snow can come hard and fast for a short duration, perhaps accompanied by strong winds. When this happens, a snow squall warning is issued because of reduced visibility. This happened in April of 2020. Heavy snowfall results in a winter storm warning, hopefully preceded well in advance by a watch so everyone can get prepared. Did you know that winter storm warnings mean different things in different parts of the country? Here in the Midwest and in the northeastern U.S., winter storm warnings are posted when 6 inches or more of snowfall is expected. In North Texas and the east central U.S., 4 inches is cause for a winter storm warning. In Alabama, 2 inches, and in South Florida, a half-inch snowfall forecast would be enough for a rare winter storm warning. How rare? Well, I couldn't find any evidence of one ever being issued in the Miami area, but the Miami suburbs did receive a few snow flurries one time during an exceptional cold spell.
And well, at one point or another, we've heard those old myths and those old wives' tales about wintry weather, but you gotta wonder just how much of what we hear is grounded in truth.
There are a myriad of old myths about Old Man Winter. 2 of the most well-known involve this little critter, the woolly bear caterpillar. If his middle brown band is wide, expect a mild winter. If it's narrow, the winter will be severe. The second myth has to do with where they go. According to this myth, if the woolly bear travels south, a harsh winter is on the way. The latter is simply an observation of woolly bears searching for an ideal place to curl up for the winter. As for the former, there's a little more to it. The coloring is dependent on a few things: how long the caterpillar has been feeding, its specific species, and its age, among other things. A good growing season means more food, which also means larger woolly bears and narrower brown center bands. Older woolly bears also have more of a red-brown color to them as opposed to black. Here's a phrase you may have heard before: big snow, or little snow, big snow. The myth hinges on the size of the snowflake being an indicator of whether a snowstorm will be a big accumulating event or not. There is at least a little bit of truth to this. Snow falling at temperatures closer to freezing are more likely to clump together and form larger flakes as they fall. This wet snow packs together pretty easily, making the accumulation process slow. On the flip side, smaller flakes form with a colder air mass in place due to flakes forming on smaller aggregates, and accumulates faster on the ground with that cold air in place since the snow doesn't pack together as readily. With that said, this is far from a straightforward setup. Atmospheric temperatures and other variables such as snowfall rates can tip the scale either way. For example, we're more likely to get heavier snowfall rates with the temperature near or just below freezing, while frigid air doesn't hold as much moisture as warm air when you consider smaller flakes. Both points would in turn debunk the myth.
And so while there is still some validity to those old tales and sayings, just remember to take them all with a grain of salt. After all, Mother Nature rarely plays by the rules, no matter how long those rules may have been around.
Well, along with how much snow fell, we'll get into more of the details about water content in that snow, too. Plus, a breakdown of how that's determined when the Keloland Live Winter Special returns.
For practical gift ideas at low prices, Nyberg's Ace is the holiday gift-giving place.
Nyberg's Ace is locally owned and a fun place to shop for a variety of unique gift ideas and a helpful staff that can help you with the right gift.
Find great gift ideas in Nyberg's Ace Grill and Smoke, including Big Green Egg, Traeger grills, and accessories. And Nyberg's Ace is your decorating place specializing in popular LED light sets. Stop in to see our huge selection.
Nyberg's Ace is helpful all around Sioux Falls with 5 convenient locations.
It was just a great experience overall. Everything from the initial heart screen to then meeting with Dr. Feldhaus, finishing up with cardiac rehab here. I just can't say enough great things about it. It was an awesome experience.
Overall care at the heart hospital was exceptional. I think every person that we met throughout our time here was extremely warm, knowledgeable. It was a defining moment in our lives.
What if we said a bank isn't a place to lock up money? It's a place to set it free. What if the point of banking wasn't to bank at all, but to put your ideas to work? What if your bank asked, what if, a little more? Well, what if we told you we do? We're American Bank and Trust, where what if meets why not? If you're ready to change what you get out of banking, start a relationship with us. What if you made the move today?
Welcome back. One of the most difficult parts of forecasting wintry weather is also the most visible and deceptively simple. Of course, we're talking about snow totals.
They're the numbers that arguably matter the most and the ones that everyone looks for when a winter storm looms. Forecasted snow amounts. At face value, it's simple enough to figure out how much snow may fall based on well-known rules of thumb. In actuality, however, it's far more complex. The general rule of thumb states that for every 10 inches of snow that's melted down, it equates to 1 inch of liquid water, creating the 10-to-1 ratio. In the upper Midwest, however, that's not completely true. On average, the ratio in our part of the country is closer to 12-to-1. This ratio is rarely the gospel truth. For this explanation, we turn to the thermometer, and not just at ground level. In general, more intense cold will beget higher snow ratios, since frigid air can't hold as much moisture. While that does factor into the equation, we also need to look at how deep the warm layer is between the ground and the clouds. A deep, warm layer will lower the ratio, while a shallow layer yields higher ratios. Lower snow ratios will also yield fluffier and heavier snow. The Easter 2020 snowstorm in eastern Keloland was a prime example of this, with liquid water ratios closer to 8-to-1. Consequently, snowstorms with a higher ratio will yield a finer and more powdery snow. One other consideration is what is within the cloud itself. If there's a higher concentration of ice crystals within the cloud, higher ratios are expected. If there's an abundance of supercooled water, that will lower the ratio due to the higher amount of available liquid water.
Unfortunately, big snow does not necessarily mean big moisture totals. One singular big snow event will only be a temporary fix at best. When it comes to long-term problems like the drought we've been seeing, what's more important is the frequency of these snow events.
Well, winter snow may not be fun to drive through, but when it melts, it sometimes provides a great runoff recharge for ponds, lakes, and streams. And as you are about to see, the total of the 2021 drought has been significant.
Water runoff from snowmelt in the spring is very important to watch, especially for parched stock dams and the impact on cattle producers in Keloland. One key factor to watch this winter will be the amount of frost in the ground as we go into the snow season. The frost depth will help determine how much of the snow soaks into the ground versus running off into creeks and rivers. Speaking of rivers, the location of the most intense drought condition overlays the heart of the Missouri River Basin. Runoff into the Missouri River for the year is forecast to be 57% of normal for 2021. That would rank as the 10th driest in 123 years of record keeping, a number that should grab our attention. Drought in the Missouri River Basin is nothing new. The drought years during the early and mid-2000s was more intense, similar to the droughts of the 1930s and 1950s. La Nina winters can deliver heavy snow to the northern Rockies during the cold phase of the pattern like we saw this past February. The reverse is true during the warm phase and would be very detrimental to the spring runoff forecast.
Knowing which face of La Nina will dominate the winter has several implications on the drought. Scott Munt will have more to say about that in his winter prediction coming up.
Well, this time of year, we don't just talk about the temperature, we also talk about wind chill, the way cold temperatures are magnified against our skin by the wind. But wind isn't all bad. In at least one respect, it can be good. Wind is somewhat mysterious. It changes direction and speed for no apparent reason. And we can't see it, we can only see what it does. And hear it, of course. The wind blows all over the earth, mostly from a westerly direction, driven by the spin of the earth. What causes wind? Quite simply, it is the movement of air molecules as they swirl away from a center of high pressure, air pushed down by the weight of the atmosphere. The air movement, the wind, moves toward an area of low pressure, where it is drawn back to the top of the atmosphere. It is the swirling movement that causes winds to change direction, and the difference between high and low pressure that changes the wind speed. The wind seems to blow around here a lot, all times of year, and here more than most other places in the U.S. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, South Dakota is the third windiest state, behind only Nebraska and Kansas, and just ahead of North Dakota and Iowa. You may have noticed that power companies are taking advantage of our windy days. South Dakota is a leader in wind power generation. In fact, South Dakota's wind generation provides 8% of the state's electricity, about enough to power 250,000 homes. There are about 20 wind power projects in South Dakota, with plans in place to install another 900 or so wind turbines. The turbines are scientifically located where the terrain is higher, where winds are locally compressed, boosting the wind's speed to the turbine blades, maximizing electrical production. Of course, even in Kelo, the wind doesn't blow all of the time, and that is one of the downsides of a dependence on wind-generated electricity.
And we have a variety of ways for you to stay up to date on the changing weather conditions. The options at your fingertips when the Kelo Live Doppler Winter Special returns.
I don't care what they say on cable news. Identifying as a Republican doesn't make you a racist any more than voting Democrat makes you a communist. On certain issues, one side may be right. On others, the opposing party may have the better argument. And sometimes right just lands somewhere in between. Here on News Nation, it'll be facts, evidence, and a dose of transparent opinion. No dogma, no overblown insults.
Dan Abrams Live, weeknights at 8, 7 Central on News Nation.
Clicking Add to Cart when you finally found the perfect Christmas gift? Yeah, that's Levo. Earning rewards got you pumped at the pump? That's Levo. A little bit of sweet freedom from the daily grind? That's Levo. When you spend confidently, when you get rewarded, when you make all the right money moves, that's Levo. And for a limited time only, transfer your high-interest balances to a Levo credit card with 0% interest. Levo Credit Union. Forward together.
It's time to find your next Chevy truck and forge ahead. Take on new challenges and take it to the next level. It's the perfect time to do more in your next Chevy. Find new possibilities, find new roads. Very well qualified buyers can get 2.49% financing and $1,000 cash allowance on this Silverado. Plus, unlock your code to claim $500 Chevy Cyber Cash on most Silverado 1500 crew cab pickups.
Welcome back. 1 year ago, drought was on the move and expanding across Kelo, but it's not just the visible signs of drought that we track. The water table underground is a very important part of the recovery we will be watching as we emerge from the winter pattern.
Drought cycles don't start overnight, and they don't end overnight either. Even with the fall rain we have seen, there are still large areas of drought across the plains of Keloland, mainly due to the long-term effects of insufficient subsoil moisture and a drop in the water table. To give you some perspective, I looked into some groundwater monitoring stations courtesy of the USGS. Take a look at the Sioux Falls area near Renner. The levels have been quite low, often below the 10th percentile the past 12 months. However, once the rain started falling in the Sioux Falls area, the groundwater levels began to improve. The Huron area stayed steady into June when the excessive heat and dry weather really took a toll on groundwater levels there. Now there has been a turnaround due to October rainfall. We can see a similar decline in the Black Hills with a monitoring station just west of Rapid City. We can see the same trend from the late summer. But when you put that data into historical perspective, the groundwater is still much better than it was 15 years ago in 2006. The winter weather pattern won't directly affect the groundwater just yet, but as snow melts and spring rains emerge, we'll watch the road to recovery across the most intense drought areas of South Dakota.
Some folks have already fully recovered, but the drought monitor will continue to show and highlight the pockets that are slowest to recover, even if we see some topsoil moisture relief through the remainder of the fall season.
And when it comes to staying up to the minute on the changing weather conditions, we have a variety of resources right at your fingertips.
When we're not on air, you can turn to KELOLAND.com. Just go to the Weather tab at the top of our homepage. This will give you a variety of options from the current radars to live cams and links to road conditions. If you have a smart device, you can add our free KELOLAND Storm Tracker app. Now, just like our website, our Storm Tracker app gives you access to your latest forecast updates and advisories. It includes everything from the hour-to-hour forecast to the 7-day forecast and, of course, KELOLAND Live Doppler radar. Tap the gear icon in the upper right-hand corner and you can add or change additional locations and alerts. Now, another great feature of our app is the option to check out our clothesline for any delays or cancellations due to the weather. Did I mention you can also find updates from the Storm Center through our Facebook and Twitter feeds? You can find quick access to those through our Storm Tracker app as well.
So as you can see, we try to provide you with a variety of options so you're never too far away from the latest weather forecasts and weather alerts. Well, up next, it's the moment that many of you have been waiting for. I give my snowfall prediction for the winter.
It's here. Our hearty and home-style menu is back, starting at just $8.99. Enjoy our classic pot roast dinner, pot roast stroganoff, fajita breakfast quesadilla, and more. And treat the family to a delicious, fresh-baked pie from Perkins Holiday Bake Shop. Take one home or order online at perkinstogo.com.
What if we said a bank isn't a place to lock up money? It's a place to set it free. What if the point of banking wasn't to bank at all, but to put your ideas to work? What if your bank asked, what if a little more? Well, what if we told you we do? We're American Bank and Trust, where what if meets why not? If you're ready to change what you get out of banking, start a relationship with us. What if you made the move today?
Hi, this is Mike and Sarah Schulte from Schulte Subaru. We want to take a moment to share with you the Subaru pillars that guide us every day on what we think is the best way to interact with our customers and our employees. Subaru calls this heart.
H is for honesty, E is for empathy, A is for appreciation, R is respect, and T is trust.
Schulte Subaru is committed to be a positive force in our community and improve the lives of those around us. So remember, be positive, be kind, and think Subaru.
Well, after many hours and days of locking myself in my basement and doing the research and listening to Christmas music just to get myself into the spirit, here's what I've come up with this year's prediction.
As with any seasonal prediction, global weather patterns have a big influence on what to expect. One of the big drivers of our snow season this year will be La Nina. Brian discussed the impacts of La Nina earlier in the show. Now it's my job to interpret the type of La Nina weather we will experience. And much like snowflakes, no two La Ninas are alike. La Nina is expected to strengthen going through the winter, so I cross-referenced that with prior La Nina years. Also, the weather patterns leading into the onset of the snow season are important too, as the pattern tends to repeat itself through the winter months. This October started warm and dry, but it ended cold and wet. The tale of two halves made it a little more difficult, but I'll give it my best shot. Here's a look at the average snowfall dating back to 1950. Study these amounts closely, as I think many will be close or above these numbers this year. Many have average snowfall in the low 30s to the mid-40 range, though Rapid City sticks out at over 50 inches. Here's what I think will happen as we go through the season. We'll eventually lose our warm air from November, and we'll get thrown into the cold in December, and along with it, the snow. We'll have a little reprieve from the cold and snow in January with a possible February thaw for some. But don't let your guard down. I think temperatures will slide again in the early spring months, with above-average snow returning for March and April. Overall, temperatures will most likely end up below average, with snowfall being at or above average. Here's a look at the numbers I've come up with. In Sioux Falls, I'm going with a number slightly above average at 45.5. Aberdeen will also be in the 40s at 40.5. Let's go with a number in the mid-30s for Pierre, while Rapid City will be just shy of 60 at 58.4.
So there you have it. That's my 19th yearly prediction. I've had some good years and I've had some bad years. We'll see what happens this year.
A little snowier than normal. I'm sure you'll be very popular this winter. Thanks a lot for joining us. This has been the Keloland Live Doppler Winter Special. Good evening.
These rooms are the central information point for the whole state of South Dakota. And on a day like today, the load is heavier than usual.
The plows were out basically to see if there were stranded motorists. Visibility was such that they couldn't continue.
Okay, wait. Go! Fly from Montego Bay to Colorado, USA, or a touchdown in the snow. West Heat Lake gives you go. Tomorrow when you're up and away, with the baby swinging your way. Mr. Weatherman, it's over to you. May the skies be clear and blue.
The Last Chance Auction Company's legendary gun auction starts Wednesday, November 17th with rare decoys and continues Thursday, November 18th with firearms, ammo, and accessories. Both auctions online only. Bid now, lastchancesd.com or call 334-SOLD.
Developing stories and all that's new from overnight.
Plus the latest on your hour-by-hour forecast tomorrow on Keloland This Morning.
Keloland, your home.
One of the hardest things has been taking care of COVID patients and having them not able to see their loved ones or say goodbye to their loved ones, holding the phone for them while their family members tell them their final goodbyes. I don't want that to happen again. If you can prevent it, I want you to get the COVID-19 vaccine.
In America, the future belongs to everyone.